By the time Nicole said, "I'm tired of your control. Maybe it's time for a divorce," the kettle had only just started singing. Steam curled up like a white flag I had no intention of waving. We were in the kitchen, not a courtroom. Hardwood under bare feet, the lemon cleaner smell still hanging from my afternoon wipe down, a clock that ticked like it had an opinion. Nicole stood on the other side of the island, arms folded in the universal sign for, "I'm not discussing this, I'm pronouncing it." She looked composed, like someone reading a press statement, not starting a war. In the past, I would have reacted the way she trained me to. Soft voice, careful words, apology for things I didn't do, a patient hand extended across her weather system. That night, I felt something simpler than anger and colder than sadness. Accuracy. You don't negotiate with a fire alarm. You either evacuate or you don't. "Okay," I said. "Divorce then." The word landed between us like a dropped glass that didn't shatter, just hummed with a pitch only we could hear. Nicole blinked. The lines around her eyes changed from disdain to confusion to something that looked suspiciously like fear. "You're not even going to argue?" she demanded. "You've made this threat for 4 months," I said. "I am choosing to believe you." Her mouth opened, then closed. She wasn't used to doors locking from the other side. "Classic," she said, finding her footing. "Control masquerading as calm. You don't even raise your voice because you think you're above it." "No," I said, "because I'm done with it." I turned off the kettle, poured the water over the waiting tea bag, and carried the mug down the hall to the office. Nicole followed, the way a storm follows heat. She paced while I opened the old fireproof folder that held documents people usually never look at until they have to. Deed, title, a stack of boring papers with my name printed in grown-up ink. I set the folder on the desk like a chess piece I'd finally decided to move. "Don't you dare," she said. "Don't you dare make this real." "You asked me to," I said. "You've asked me 6 times. Because you never listen," she snapped. "Because you're—" "Nicole," I said, and not unkindly, "we're not auditioning insults tonight." Her nostrils flared. "I'm going to Sierra's," she announced, as if I were a receptionist she needed to inform. "Don't text me." "I won't," I said. "Drive safe." The front door closed harder than it needed to, and the house exhaled. I set the tea down, took a breath, and dialed my attorney. "Evening, Mark," he said. "Everything okay?" People who know you well ask that question even when you call at normal hours. I was calling at the hour that makes everything sound like an emergency. "I need clarity," I said. "On the house, on a timeline, on best practices." We went through the list. The house was mine, purchased 2 years before marriage, deed in my name, mortgage paid from my account. Not romantic, but relevant. The timeline was as quick as I was willing to file. The best practices were boring and prudent. Document everything. Don't raise your voice. Don't lock her out unlawfully. Don't touch her property except to pack it with care. Arrange delivery to a place she accepts. "You sure you're ready?" he asked. "I'm sure I'm done being ready and never starting." "Then I'll draft the notice and have it in your email in the morning." When we hung up, I scrolled through Nicole's old messages. Threats written like weather alerts. I took screenshots, filed them into a folder named with the world's least poetic phrase, documentation. It felt like sweeping glass, necessary, unglamorous, keeping future bare feet safe. The second call was to Margaret. Her mother, "Hi Margaret, it's Mark." "Oh dear," she said, "which one of us is in trouble?" "No one," I said. "Nicole told me tonight she wants a divorce. You know this isn't the first time. I'm going to make arrangements for her things to be brought to you. I wanted to check you're willing to have her stay while we do this right." Margaret was silent long enough for the floorboards to creak. Then, "I told that girl years ago, threats aren't seasoning, they're poison. Yes, bring her home." "And Mark?" "Yes? Thank you for not screaming back." "I'm trying something radical," I said. "Listening to what she says she wants." "Lord help us," Margaret said, dry as the desert. "Then maybe she'll learn what that costs." I reserved a moving truck for Saturday morning. texted 3 friends who had lived long enough near our marriage to recognize smoke when they smelled it. Can you help me move Nicole's things Saturday? Reply 1, about time. Reply 2, say when. Reply 3, I'll bring coffee and tape. The house was silent except for the clock. I walked room to room with a legal pad, not as an accountant, but as a witness. Her things were easy to identify, not because they were pink or shiny or hers, but because they were recent. I made neat columns that kept me from thinking too long. Clothing, personal items, books, decor from her family, keep carefully together. The espresso machine she swore would change her life and use twice a month like a religious holiday. I made a small star next to that one, pack with extra bubble wrap, not out of spite, out of habit. I was careful even when no one deserved it. I slept surprisingly well. When a decision is heavier than you, it sleeps on your chest and counts your ribs. When a decision fits you, your chest rises and falls between it. In the morning, my email had the draft from my attorney. I printed it, read it, didn't enjoy any of the nouns, signed nothing yet. I made coffee from the old plain machine that never lied about being essential, and I ate toast that tasted like food instead of a metaphor. Nicole's car wasn't in the driveway. Good. I wasn't interested in another round of, I dare you to take me seriously, when I was already past dare and deep into done. I started packing, shirts in careful stacks, shoes stuffed with socks so they'd keep their shape, jewelry zipped into little bags that didn't tangle. I labeled every box like a responsible tour guide of a country we had failed to build. Around noon, my phone lit up. A notification from the only news source that mattered anymore, social media. Nicole had posted a photo, not of herself, not of us, but of a quote in cursive over a photo of a woman walking into a sunset. Freedom isn't given, it's claimed. The caption, when your voice is silenced at home, you have to find it in the streets. Proud of the women who taught me to choose myself. Independent boundaries, no more control. I looked at the caption and felt 2 things, neither of them anger. One was relief. At least she was consistent. The other was something like pity. It takes a particular kind of loneliness to play to a crowd. I didn't comment. Her friends did. A chain of heart emojis. You deserve better, girl. Come stay with me if you need. Men get scared when women stop being quiet. I put my phone face down. Moving tape makes a great, decisive sound when you pull it. I let that be my soundtrack. My friends arrived at 10 the next morning, Saturday, gray and obedient. We loaded the first wave, closet, bookshelf, the decorative throw pillows that had cost more than my first car payment. They worked with the tact that men use when the thing being moved is heavier than the person who owns it. Jokes were short, in the safe middle distance where humor meets respect. Any trouble? Josh asked, lifting a box marked Bathroom, Nicole. Not yet, I said. Want some? He said, offering a donut I didn't deserve. I'll take the next one, I said, smiling. After the espresso machine. We wrapped the machine like it was glass filled with glass. I taped the box and wrote in block letters, kitchen, espresso, fragile. Somewhere between the F and the R, I realized I was not performing niceness for an audience. I simply didn't like breaking things, even symbolic ones. At 8:27, the rental truck rumbled to a stop out front. The driver hopped down with the calm of a man who has seen more endings than florists. We created a small, efficient city of motion, from bedroom to hallway to porch to ramp to truck, like blood finding a new route. At 8:41, a familiar car turned into the driveway too quickly. Nicole parked diagonally, an angle of ownership she no longer had, and killed the engine hard enough to make the belts cough. Sierra was in the passenger seat, phone in hand, thumb at the ready. Documentation, I guessed. We were all archivists now. Nicole got out slowly, not because she was calm, but because fury wanted an entrance. Her eyes took in the open truck, the labeled boxes, my friends lifting our history like it weighed 40 pounds. Something in her face cracked and reset. "What is this?" she said, not asked. "What are you doing with my things?" "Packing them carefully," I said, lifting a box without breaking eye contact. "We're delivering them to your mother's at 2. "You can't," she said, voice rising on the vowel. "You can't just decide to kick me out of my own home." "This isn't your home," I said, not unkindly. "The deed is in my name, and you asked for a divorce. I didn't ask you to throw me out on the street." "I'm not," I said. "I'm sending you to the only person who has ever liked you unconditionally. It's the opposite of the street." Sierra stepped out, chin high, eyebrows already forming a headline. "Mark, maybe we should sit down and talk like adults." "We've spent 4 months talking," I said. "This is the part where adults do the thing they said they were going to do." Nicole laughed, a sharp thing that pretended to be a cough. "You're unbelievable," she said. "You're actually doing this." "No," I said. "I'm finally not undoing it." Across the street, a curtain moved. Mrs. Henderson watered her plants the way one waters one's plants while listening to opera. Mr. Johnson appeared at the edge of his driveway, arms folded the way good fences are. The neighborhood had the decency to look accidental and the appetite to be present. "Stop loading," Nicole ordered, as if any of us worked for her. "Josh, put that down. If you touch my things, I'll—" "You'll what?" Josh said, polite as church. "She'll post about it," Sierra said evenly. Which, to be clear, she absolutely should. "Great," I said. "More documentation saves me a step." Nicole's attention snapped to me. "You think this is funny?" "No," I said. "But I do think it's clear." "Clear?" She gestured at the truck. "Clear as you throwing away 3 years of marriage because I asked for space." "This," I said, and let my hand indicate the truck, the boxes, the way the light sat on the driveway like a witness, "is me letting your words be worth what you say they are." Her jaw set. "I want half of everything." "You're welcome to want that in court," I said. "Where wanting and getting spend very little time together." Behind her, Sierra's phone hovered, uncertain whether this was content or evidence. The morning had a new smell now, the dry sweetness of a public scene. It sticks in the throat, even when you're the one not choking. Nicole took a step toward the front door. I moved without hurry and stood in front of it. Not blocking, just existing where she wanted to pretend I didn't. "The locks," she said slowly, like the word insulted her. "You changed the locks." "Yesterday," I said, "per my attorney's guidance, after you told me to divorce you in my kitchen. You don't live here anymore, Nicole." Her eyes flashed, then filled. She switched weapons with the reflex of a seasoned fighter. Rage emptied out, and her face softened like stage lighting. She reached for my forearm. "Please," she said, quieter, voice slipping into the space between us the way fog does. "Can we talk? Just for a minute. I was scared. I needed to know you loved me enough to fight for me." "I do love you," I said. "Enough not to fight you for me." Something in her flinched, like a string breaking. The scene held still, just long enough for the next move to feel inevitable. "Mark," Mrs. Henderson called across the hydrangeas, uninvited and somehow invited. "Do you need anything?" "No, ma'am," I said. "We're almost done." And we were. The last box waited at my feet, marker uncapped. I wrote bedroom, nightstand, Nicole, and drew a small square next to it that looked almost like a checkbox. I put the cap on, set the box on my hip, and started toward the truck. I heard Nicole's breath catch behind me, the way a storm regathers after it decides thunder didn't work. Sierra whispered something to her, an urgent hiss that contained words like lawyers and optics. The neighborhood leaned in. We were a few steps from the part where the crowd picks sides, which is to say, the part where she makes this public, and I let her. And that is where I'll pause, for breath, for decency, for the sound of a tape gun to snap us into the next moment. By the time the last box made it down the ramp, The driveway had turned into something between a block party and a trial. The kind where no one asked to be on the jury, but everyone brought their folding chairs anyway. Nicole must have felt the audience because she changed gears. Rage wasn't working. Pleading wasn't working. So she reached for her most reliable costume. Victimhood, Season 6. She spun toward the half-circle of neighbors now gathering with the enthusiasm of people who usually only come out for fireworks. "This," she declared, her voice pitched for drama, "is what emotional abuse looks like. He's making me homeless because I dared to stand up for myself." Cue gasp. Except no one gasped. Instead, Mrs. Henderson laughed. Out loud. The kind of laugh that wrinkles the face in directions Botox can't stop. "Oh, honey," she said, setting her watering can down like she couldn't be bothered to continue the charade. "We've all heard you yelling about divorce every other week. Sounds like he finally listened." Nicole froze, mid-performance. That was not in the script. "Mind your business," she snapped at Mrs. Henderson. "You don't know anything about our relationship." "I know my walls are thin," Henderson shot back, "and I know this man's been patient with you longer than most saints would have lasted." The crowd murmured approval. Nicole's face flickered like a bad bulb. Shock, fury, panic, repeat. That's when Mr. Johnson spoke, deep voice carrying across the street like a gavel. "Handled it right, son. Can't let folks walk all over you in your own home." Nicole whipped around, pointing at him like he'd committed treason. "Walk all over him? I'm his wife. I have rights." "Yep," Johnson said calmly. "You've got the right to file for divorce, which you did, so here we are." Sierra stepped forward, hand up like a referee. "Everyone just calm down. Maybe we don't need an audience for this." Too late. The audience was the point. That's when Mr. Lewis, the neighbor who always thought his opinion was wisdom wrapped in cardigans, decided to make an entrance. He adjusted his glasses like truth was hiding in the smudge. "Mark," he said, sighing heavily, "don't you think this is a bit drastic? Marriage is sacred. People say things in anger. Throwing her out like this seems cold." Nicole latched onto him instantly, like a drowning actress spotting a prop raft. "Thank you. Finally someone reasonable. He's overreacting. I just needed space, and now he's humiliating me in front of everyone." Theatrics, volume set to maximum. I turned to Lewis, smiled the way you do when someone suggests water isn't wet. "Sacred, huh? Sacred is respect. Sacred is meaning your words. She burned that altar 6 times. I'm just sweeping the ashes." Johnson barked a laugh. Henderson muttered, "Amen." Nicole, realizing the tide wasn't turning, doubled down. She pointed at the truck, then at me, her voice reaching a pitch that could sandglass. "You're throwing away 3 years of marriage over 1 sentence." "6 sentences, I corrected. "Plus the footnotes, the late-night dramatics, and the encore every time you felt ignored." "Don't undersell yourself, Nicole. You've been consistent." The crowd chuckled. My sarcasm was finally earning its tips. Her eyes darted, looking for someone, anyone, still on her side. Sierra kept her phone down now, uncertainty plastered across her activist face. The applause Nicole expected wasn't coming. So Nicole tried Act 4, desperation by props. She lunged at one of the boxes, yanking it out of Josh's arms, nearly toppling backward with the weight. "These are mine," she screamed, clutching it like a child clutching a teddy bear. "If you touch them again, it's theft." Josh looked at me. I nodded. He let go. Nicole stumbled back with the box, hugging it to her chest. For dramatic effect, I noted the label. Kitchen, towels, an empire built on terry cloth. "1 box, I said, voice steady. "You can keep 1 box here if it makes you feel victorious. The rest goes to your mother's. Non-negotiable." She sank onto the driveway with it, hair sticking to her cheek, mascara edging toward Broadway. "I'm not going anywhere. This is my home too." I pulled out my phone. "Okay, police it is. You can explain to them why you're trespassing after demanding a divorce 6 times. That did it. Sierra's reflexes finally kicked in. She crouched next to Nicole, whispering like a hostage negotiator, words I didn't catch. But the shape was obvious. This isn't working. Get up before it gets worse. Nicole shook her head violently, clutching the towel box tighter. She wanted an audience. She wanted pity. She wanted someone, anyone, to rewrite the story. And the neighborhood kept watching. Porches filled, phones maybe recording, the collective murmur of people who knew a circus when it parked on their street. The towel box must have been heavier than her dignity, because Nicole finally set it down beside her and shifted weapons. Anger had failed. Public appeal had failed. Now she reached for the oldest bullet in her revolver. Tears. It started with the sniffles, quiet, tragic, like she'd been auditioning in front of a mirror. Then the voice softened, dropped an octave, trembling like a violin string about to snap. "Mark," she whispered, just loud enough for the jury of neighbors to hear. "Please, don't do this. I don't mean it when I say those things. I was scared. I needed to know you loved me enough to fight for me." She looked up at me with wet lashes, mascara rivers carving new geography down her cheeks. A performance of vulnerability so textbook I half expected her to hand out programs. I crossed my arms. "So let me get this straight. You tested my love by threatening to end our marriage. Repeatedly. That's your metric?" "It sounds crazy. I know," she said, scrambling closer on her knees. "But I needed to see if you cared, if I mattered to you." "You mattered," I said evenly. "Enough that I tolerated 4 months of emotional Russian roulette. Enough that I thought patience would win. Turns out patience just makes better ammunition." Her lip trembled. "Please, I'll change. I swear this time is different. I'll never say the word divorce again. I'll go to counseling, therapy, whatever you want. Just don't send me away." Behind her, Sierra gave me a look like maybe I should consider it. She even chimed in awkwardly. "She sounds sincere, Mark." "Maybe." I laughed. Actually laughed. A sharp, dry sound. "She sounded sincere the other 5 times too. What's that saying about fool me once?" At this point, even the towels have stopped believing her. Nicole reached for my hands, clutching them tight like they were handcuffs she wanted to put on herself. "This time is different. I swear on my mother's life." "That's funny," I said, pulling free. "Because your mother already told me she warned you this would happen. I'd trust her life before your promises." Henderson smirked like she was watching a soap opera with the good wine. Johnson nodded once, like a verdict had been read. Even Lewis looked uneasy, as if he'd finally realized which side of history he was standing on. Nicole, seeing no sympathy in the crowd, tried one last Hail Mary. "I love you," she said, voice cracking. "I love you more than anything. Please don't throw us away." "I believe you do love me," I said. "But love without respect is just noise. And you can't respect someone you keep threatening to abandon. That's not a marriage. It's a hostage situation." Silence. Pure, thick, neighborly silence. Finally, the truck driver leaned out his window. "All loaded. We ready to roll?" I nodded. "Take it to Margaret's. She's expecting you." Nicole's face crumpled like paper. Sierra finally pulled her up by the arm, whispering fiercely, "Come on, we can't win this here." Nicole stumbled, looking back at me with the wide eyes of someone who just discovered that consequences are real. "I hate you," she spat, voice small but sharp. "I know," I said. "That's why divorce is the right call." The truck rumbled down the street, Sierra's car following close behind. Neighbors began to drift back to their porches, satisfied they'd gotten front row seats to the end of Act 1 in the drama next door. I stood in the driveway, oddly calm. The house behind me felt different already, lighter, quieter, like it had been vacuum-sealed from chaos. For the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for the next threat. 3 weeks after the moving truck pulled away with Nicole's empire of throw pillows and half-used beauty products, the house sounded like a monastery. Not the chanting kind, just the quiet, heavy with its own air kind. I woke up one morning and realized I hadn't been yelled at in 21 days. I hadn't been threatened with divorce, accused of controlling behavior, or forced into the role of emotional stunt double. My heartbeat felt bored, and boredom had never tasted so good. Work noticed first. Without the constant stress of being Nicole's emotional punching bag, I suddenly had mental bandwidth. Projects I'd been half-assing for months, done, deadlines, met early. My boss actually asked if I'd started taking supplements. I didn't have the heart to tell him the miracle pill was called divorce pending. 2 weeks in, I got a promotion. Same desk, bigger paycheck. The universe has a wicked sense of humor. Apparently losing a wife is excellent for career development. The neighborhood noticed too. Mrs. Henderson waved from her garden like I'd finally joined the club of people who enjoy their own homes. Mr. Johnson stopped by to help me install a new security system. His way of saying, "Welcome to bachelorhood, don't let her sneak back in." Even Lewis, the cardigan defender of holy matrimony, mumbled something about, "Maybe you did what was necessary while borrowing my ladder." Apologies come in many shapes. Some wear beige. And Nicole? Oh, she was living the sequel no one asked for. Margaret called once during the divorce proceedings. Voice equal parts pity and satisfaction. She cries every night, she told me. Hates being back in her childhood room at 32. No overnight guests, no espresso machine, no Sierra on speed dial. House rules apply and she doesn't like them. I can imagine, I said, sipping coffee from the old reliable Mr. Coffee machine. How's she taking it? Badly, Margaret said. But maybe she'll learn. A woman can't build a marriage on ultimatums. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Life had already done the gloating for me. The best part? Sierra, the ever-loyal feminist friend, Nicole's hype woman, the one who always added extra fuel to the bonfire, called me out of nowhere. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity kills more than cats. "Mark," she started, voice lacking the usual defiance. "I owe you an apology." I leaned back in my chair. "That's a new sound." "I didn't get it before," she admitted. "I thought you were controlling, like Nicole said. But then she stayed at my place for a week before moving back with her mom. And Mark, she threatened to move out 3 times, in 7 days, because I asked her to wash her dishes." I smiled, unseen. "Classic Nicole," Sierra groaned. "I get it now. She doesn't want relationships, she wants leverage. And when leverage doesn't work, she self-destructs." "Congratulations," I said. "You've unlocked the final level of the Nicole experience." Look, I know I didn't make things easier for you," Sierra said. "I'm sorry for that." Apology accepted. Not because I needed it, but because it cost her something to say it. Meanwhile, Nicole had gone quiet online. Her big independent woman rising post slowed down after the neighbors started following her account. Turns out it's hard to play the victim when Mrs. Henderson likes your post and comments, "Sweetheart, I heard the whole thing through my wall. Didn't sound like oppression, sounded like you packing." The divorce papers went through without fireworks. No contested hearings, no courtroom drama. She tried for spousal support, tried for half the house. My lawyer slid the screenshots across the table. Her own words, her repeated threats, her total lack of financial contribution. Case closed. The judge looked like he wanted to fine her for wasting ink. I kept the house, my retirement accounts, and the most valuable currency of all, silence. Nicole got her childhood room and, hopefully, a therapist with the patience of a saint. 6 months later, I ran into Nicole at the grocery store. She looked smaller, not in size, but in temperature. Less fire, more smoke after the burn. We exchanged the kind of polite hello that strangers use. She fiddled with a basket, eyes darting like she was rehearsing a line. "I'm seeing a therapist now," she said quietly. "I understand why you did what you did. I kept sabotaging something good." "That's progress," I said. She swallowed. "For what it's worth, you taught me words have consequences. I needed that lesson." I smiled, dry and even. "Good. Just a shame you learned it in the clearance aisle." Her eyes flickered. She nodded and walked away. I went home to my quiet house, poured coffee from the honest old machine, and thought, sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is stop being their safety net. She got her lesson. I got my peace. The trade felt more than fair.